waited all winter for this.
It's the biggest race we have all year long.
The icons of this sport have all starred on its biggest stage.
It's the great American race. Trust me.
I won the Daytona 500. I won the Daytona 500.
Pull them belts tight one last time, boys. Light the fire.
Big push coming now for Harvick. Oh, and around goes a couple cars. Priest upside down. He's barrel rolling through the grass.
You got plenty of money. Don't need that to keep racing. Is it worth the risk to keep on going?
Sure, to win.
Oh yeah, welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. I'm your host, Michael D. White, joined by my two best friends, Matt the Statman Reilly and Eric Daytona Ron. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys had yourselves a William Byron type of weekend, because he was the big winner down in Daytona for the Daytona 500. Fellas, how you feeling? How's your weekend?
Good, man. My voice is back. My dad texted me last week after listening. He's like, way to fight through, man. So yeah, that was my flu game last week. But
definitely
feel a lot better, man. Hell of a weekend of racing. You know, when we got it in finally. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of hear your side of it. You know, Whitey, you were boots on the ground down there, so.
I was boots on the ground. So before we get to that, just we're live on Twitch at twitch.tv/bump/bumperrun podcast. Available every Monday or Tuesday on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. But this week we're coming to you live on Wednesday because, of course, everything was delayed a day, and then I almost didn't make it back to Pennsylvania, boys. Got a story about that for you. Gonna be fucking. It was a stress.
Did you almost get arrested?
No, I didn't almost get arrested. I almost got stranded in the Orlando airport. Frontier Airlines, not a fan of Whitey, apparently. So we were...
I can't wait to hear this story.
Dude, our trip was just like miserable travel-wise. We drive to Philly, no problem. Our flight was delayed. We found out it was delayed at midnight. Also, if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch right now, the screen looks different because I had issues with my camera from last week. We're powering through it. We're trying to get through. Anyways, 5-hour flight delay. They loaded us on the plane and delayed it every 20 minutes, then got us off the plane, and then finally got us back on. So we were originally supposed to fly out at like 10 in the morning. We flew out at 3:20-ish or so. We got to our hotel in Daytona at like 9:30, 10 o'clock on Saturday night, and we didn't do anything. We got beers at Publix, and we just drank in the hotel and passed out probably by 11, which wasn't the worst, you know? Sunday was fantastic with the rain because they canceled the race. They gave everyone plenty enough time, so we were able to reschedule flights and all this stuff. Here's the thing though, fuck Frontier Airlines for the rest of my life, because they gave us a $50 voucher for the flight delay. I think they have to by law. It was probably like $10 for every fucking hour they delayed us. So I was like, oh, perfect. We got $50. $84 flights on Tuesday out of Orlando. Not a big deal. Use the $50 voucher. It's like, I missed out on my flight on Monday. Burn $120 some. So like whatever. Well, apparently you can't use the discount code, the voucher on the app. You have to go on the website. Well, I did my booking on the app and I accidentally paid full price for the fucking flight. So I was ding number 2. Thankfully, I was texting my father through all this. He sent me some money. So thank you, Dad. I really appreciate it. You helped me get home out of Florida. And then
Jesus Christ, man.
And then we get to the airport and we got an email in the middle of the night. Jay tells us, he's like, hey, they're giving us a smaller plane today. And you know how they do the whole deal where it's like, hey, if we can get some volunteers with a flexible schedule, we'll give you a $250 voucher on your next flight. Great fucking deal.
They're trying to persuade you with the old Benjamins out of the pocket.
I've heard it get up to $1,000 before.
Yeah, listen, it wouldn't even be worth $1,000. I'll tell you what, because whatchamacallit. So They asked for 13 volunteers. Guess how many they got?
13.
0.
Of course, because no one wants to spend an extra all this time.
Overbooked by 13 people. That's insane.
That's insane.
So here's the thing: I have to rewind to Friday or Saturday. I didn't check in early enough, so I didn't have an assigned seat when I got there. It gave me zone 99, and then they just had to print out a boarding pass. No big deal. Super quick. Got right on the plane. No issues. While standing in line, I made sure on after the race that I checked in to the flight to make sure I had no fucking issues like on Saturday. I was zone 3, whatever seat F, which I know is a window seat. So I'm like, all right, I'm on the window seat again. Whatever. Can't go to the bathroom all flight. No big deal. Don't worry about it. Well, I get in line and I pull up my fucking boarding pass and it's zone 99. No seat assigned. And I'm like, what the fuck, right? I haven't really put it together yet, though. Luke and Jay, they scan their boarding passes. They're standing on the tunnel. Thank God. Thank God they didn't actually get on the plane and they stayed right at the door waiting for me. I get pushed off to the side, along with guess how many other sad folks? 12.
0.
No, 12 people.
Oh,
right?
He was part of the 13.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm like standing here and I'm getting nervous and agitated, but I'm still uncertain of what's going on. Luke figured it out, though. He knows that I'm about to get stranded in Orlando. And they're going to say, sorry, no room for you on this fucking flight. You fucking assholes. Anyways, that's exactly what happened. And when we realized it, there's this dude in between the ticket ladies. He was like helping people board. He goes to Luke, he goes, you got 10 seconds to meet up with your friend, like go back out for your friend or get on this plane because this door is closing. And Luke goes, we're his ride out of Philly. And then it clicks and I know exactly what's going on. I go, I got to get on this flight. They're my ride out of Philadelphia. I don't live in Philly. I live 2 hours away and they drove me here. Right. And the lady looks at me. She goes, what's your name? I go, Mike. She goes, you're the next on the list. I go, I need to get on that plane. This is outrageous. Like, I have to go. Like, they're my ride. They're going to strand me here. I go, you can't do this to people. You can't do this where you just pull them off and you strand them in Florida. Because now I'm stranded in Florida. And when I get to Philadelphia, they're not going to be here because I don't know when I'm going to get there. And I'm not going to have them wait around for me. You know, I'm thinking in the back of my mind.
I know this exact Whitey. Like, I've been around this Whitey that comes out. I know exactly. Oh my God, I can picture it in my head right now.
Also, out of everybody in my life that I know, this is the only person that it would happen to.
Oh, of course. And you know what? I wanted to drink a beer before that flight so bad, and thank God I didn't because I needed to be crisp for this moment. It was like the universe was like, no, stay sober because you're going to have to use your words and you're going to have to be quick on your toes and fucking fast. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was just spitting this lady where I'm like, you can't do this to people. This is inhumane. How could you book a flight and then have all these people like standing out here? I'm like, you gave us no warning. You just closed they legitimately closed the door at this point. She goes, I go, you just fucking closed the door at this point and you didn't tell any of us what was going on during this whole entire time. And we could have had an hour to plan for this.
Was anyone else getting, like, of the 12 that got pulled off to the side? No one else made like a stink about it? Like, or were they all just victims?
There was one guy behind me who just kept going, yo, I got a doctor's appointment. And in the back of my mind, I go, I'm not leaving out of this airport without being on that flight. Like, I'm making this flight, right?
I'm pissed off on behalf of Whitey at this point.
So finally, like, I'm going, this lady, she like there wasn't a whole lot of words, but she's like, we just found out when we had to move the gate. I go, bullshit. I found out that the plane was smaller in an email last night at midnight. I had a seat assigned for this plane and now I don't. This is I didn't say horseshit.
Trying to pull the wool right over your eyes, buddy.
And I even said to the lady, I go, I know you're just doing your job, but this is fucked up what you're doing to people. This is fucked up, and you shouldn't do this to people. Like, this is insane. You can't do this.
Whitey's on someone's TikTok right now, 100%.
Oh, probably.
And Whitey on camera, and he's on TikTok.
I can't wait to come across it in an IG reel and send it to our group.
The best part and the saddest part, though, too, I was talking to an older couple all about our flight delays on Friday. and like how terrible it was while we were standing in this line. So this lady heard me go through Friday, 5 hours. And I even said, and the fucking assholes won't let you use the voucher on the app. So if they give you a voucher, make sure you go to the website. I was telling it to these people while I'm still irritated before we even really knew what was going on. I was just already irritated at the airline. So eventually this guy who was the in-between, he ran out. They had one seat left that wasn't filled. I legitimately, as they're printing out my boarding pass, they're giving me a boarding pass to get on it. And I go, thank you so much for getting me on this flight, but this is fucked up what you're doing to people. And I feel really bad for these people. And as I was boarding, I legitimately turned, I go, people, I'm so sorry that I'm making this flight and you aren't. This is fucked up. And I just walked on the plane, and the dude who had a doctor's appointment goes, yo, man, it's not your problem. It's these fucking assholes. You know?
Yeah.
Like, he's like,
and
it's not your fault.
Yourself. That's why you always got to say something.
Oh, yeah.
You missed the best part. The best detail about all of this is that while you're yelling at this lady, you have a handlebar mustache on.
I have long hair and a handlebar mustache and a Daytona International Speedway hoodie that I bought at the track the night before because it got too cold, and I didn't take any of my clothes off yet, so I fucking stunk too. I know I did.
Okay, so I'm going to take that back. There is 100% chance that there's a TikTok or an IG reel of you with that outfit and full handlebar mustache. Someone definitely videotaped you freaking out.
I'll tell you what, though. Let's give Whitey a round of applause because you spoke for America when you were yelling at that.
Goddamn right you did.
It was like,
because you're right. They screw you.
Nobody should have to go through that. Nobody.
No.
And like, thank God Luke was on the corner, like relaying to everybody the situation on his end, where he's like, he was saying the same thing. He's like, we drove him to Philadelphia. Like, he needs to be on this plane with us. Like, we all came together, you know?
Like, you can't do that to people.
No.
Like, you just flatly can't do that to people.
And that's why I just kept saying, you can't do this to people.
You know, to who was it? Clint Boyer? Didn't he leave Clint Boyer somewhere?
Yeah, I think Junior's left a few people at airports, but that's a whole different story.
You know what was the worst part about it, though? When I finally sat down and like I calmed myself down, the dude that was talking in between, he goes, yo, man, you got real lucky because the next flight out of here to Philly is tomorrow morning. Our flight was for 10 o'clock in the morning. This was 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. This all happened. This was before noon that this all happened. So those people
would wait 24 hours.
And I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now. This is and it's late because of that. Because when I got home in time to do the podcast. I had no energy left in me. I was just fed up with everything. But like, worst comes to worst, honestly, I would have had to sleep in a fucking airport and then rent a car and drive home alone, which wouldn't have been a big deal. But I didn't even think about that piece because all I'm thinking about is I can't be stranded here, you know? It's fucked. Anyways, rest of the weekend, fantastic. Race was awesome, boys. Had a blast, got a little sunburn, drank a ton of beers, filmed a guy proposing to his girlfriend at the end of the race. I was so shit-faced. Thank God he hit record. He hands it to me. He goes, hey, man, can you record something for me? I go, okay. I've been recording videos for Luke all weekend, so I didn't think second thing of it. I lift it up and I go, oh, shit. His girlfriend was like turned around, not paying attention. And I see him pull out the ring box. I go, oh, shit. And I'm like, I got to like sober up quick. I counted the beers that were not in my cooler. I bought an 18-pack at the track. I had 4 beers left when I came back, and I only gave 2 of those beers away. So I drank 12 beers and then filmed some guy's engagement. Shit-faced. But it turned out well. She was ecstatic, so...
If that ain't America and Daytona right there, I don't know what else. When Jay told me that story, I'm like... Oh, well, he did say, he goes, Whitey was so nervous that he didn't hit record, and the whole thing was ruined.
I was, yeah. Thank God the guy hit record before he handed it to me, because, like, it was an Android. I don't know what I'm doing, an Android phone.
Out of all the people that poor soul could have handed a phone to,
I know.
The worst person.
Little does he know, the guy who he just handed the phone to was more nervous than he was.
Can I tell you, the race ended at what, like 8:30, 8:45? That's when it happened. Yeah. I forgot in between then and the Xfinity Series race, we went to meet up with Alex and his buddies in the third level. And Jay starts telling the story. He's like, yo, Whitey, you had to film some guy propose. I go, oh, shit, I did do that, didn't I? And it was like an hour and a half ago, you know? So hopefully.
One of those days.
Yeah, hopefully they're Byron fans, and it means good things to come for their marriage. But that was pretty much all of the highs and the lows of my weekend besides the race. You know, hung out at our usual spots down in Daytona, Ocean Deck, and all that stuff. But how about you guys? How was your weekend, and how was watching at home? How was waiting for Monday?
I'll tell you what, it wasn't that bad waiting around. I'm kind of at this point in being a race fan, Daytona, you have to know that it's probably going to go to Monday or get delayed a little bit. That's Florida weather. So yeah. I'm used to it. So it didn't really have an effect on me there. I was so amped up for the season after the Netflix show, and I was ready to go. So no matter when the race was, I was amped up, and it still meant the same. It's the Daytona 500. If you can't get excited for that no matter what day, then what are you even doing calling yourself a race fan? So it was no worries on a Monday for me. And the racing was great. I thought it was probably the best Daytona we've seen in the next gen car, for sure. And that, made for a good race all race long. The trucks, not so much when they were on track, but I thought overall for the weekend that Daytona had down there, weather-wise, I think NASCAR came out on top this weekend.
Yeah, I wasn't upset about it, only because I think we knew about it last week when we were recording. We saw that. Anyone who checked the weather just saw that it was getting worse and worse and worse as every day went along. So I knew going into the weekend we weren't going to see much racing. So I had already set my mindset to don't get let down. The only thing was on Sunday was, okay, when are you going to make an announcement? And it was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning when they made the announcement.
Probably like that, like 10:30, 11 or so. Yeah.
We were out running, we were getting coffees, and Steph was like, what do you want to do today? I said, let's just wait to get the official announcement just so, I could, I didn't tell you guys this. You want to know how much? Okay. So this is going to be a really long opening to our show. If you're used to our show, I apologize. Whitey had a fantastic story. I have a half decent story. Yeah. So Steph's brother plays. I'll try to keep names out of it just to avoid any type of trouble, whatever. But Steph's brother, my brother-in-law, plays hockey, collegiate hockey, a D3 level school. And he had a game Sunday afternoon, and Steph was asking me, hey, do you want to go to the game? And I said, well, let's wait for the announcement and everything. So the announcement came early. I said, yeah, what? I'll come to the game with you. Excited to go see Trent play a game. Yeah. So they're playing another team, and I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because I know we're real into it here. They're playing another team that's real chippy. It's getting real out of hand at the end of the game. A lot of dirty hits, players in and out of the penalty box, parents yelling at each other and everything. Well, long story short, as the players are coming off the ice, there was essentially I don't want to call it a brawl because punches weren't thrown, but it was like a pushing, shoving match between 50 people. Yeah. Players, parents. I was in the middle of it. It was insane.
Oh, really?
The cops showed up. It was crazy. Oh, yeah. And this is me trying to go through it as fast as possible. There's more details that I can tell you guys off air, but yeah, I was in the middle of a 50-person brouhaha, I guess.
When you said brawl broke out, I was picturing on the ice, and then you said parents, and you were involved, and now I'm thinking I was in what was that big NBA riot when we were in high school with Meta World Peace, and he was punching a guy in the stands and shit.
Yeah.
It was bad enough where my wife had Jackson on her hip. She was holding him, she was holding him. And I looked at her dead square in the eyes, and I said, "Get the fuck out of here, because it's about to go down." Really? And she had to get out of there because it was about
grab
to go
the kid
down.
and run.
Cooler heads prevailed at the end. But yeah, if you guys want, I'll give you more details off the air so we don't hold the show up anymore. But
hell yeah,
it was in my head. It's been, I don't know, 12 years since I've been into a fist fight. It's been a long time. So in my head, it was so close where I was like, okay, I'm getting into a brawl right now.
Yeah.
And like, there were people with phones out and everything, and I was like, here we go. Like I'm gonna be on YouTube or the IG or whatever.
I'm in a YouTube video on an airport freaking out. You're in a YouTube video at a hockey game and a big brawl. Eric, what YouTube did you make this weekend?
Nothing. For once, I'm the guy that stayed cool all weekend long. No trouble here, boys. Who would have guessed that?
So, Matt,
it de-escalated quickly, so it was like, thank God. But like, it was like, it was bad. It was bad. It was where we were close, boys.
But you didn't have to throw any punches, and you didn't take any hits.
I was so ready. There was a dad from the other team that like I was convinced like I'm gonna punch through his face when I get this opportunity. Like I was ready. I told Steph, I'm like,
it's the first time like you've never got to use your dad strength yet, Matt.
For
you know
real,
what I mean? That's
yeah.
one of those opportunities where you get to see what you have now.
I was gonna punch his teeth through the back of his skull. I was furious. I'll tell you guys later, but yeah, it was close.
All right. Well,
I was yelling. I was screaming.
Well,
this is such a Tuesday show. It's unbelievable.
It's a Wednesday show. We're real off the rails, dude. Well, Matt, I'm glad you didn't end up in cuffs, man, at a D3 hockey game. Holy shit! What an afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's what happens when the race gets delayed. So Mother Nature, don't do this to us. It looks like Hampton, Georgia. The weather's going to be just fine for Sunday, so we're good for hot Atlanta.
Thank God. And let's get into the NASCAR stuff. We're only 20 minutes in. So NASCAR news. Let's run through it real quick. There's a new NASCAR mobile game that came out. It's called NASCAR Manager. I downloaded it for like 10 minutes today and played it. It seems kind of fun. You basically you're the crew chief during the race. You're not actually racing. You're making pit calls and whatnot. So if you want to kill some time on the toilet, you can download NASCAR Manager. Let's see. The VP of competition, Elton Sawyer, said NASCAR is going to do a deeper dive into the fuel saving strategy Cup teams employed during the Daytona 500. I know Denny Hamlin was upset with some of the fuel saving at the 500. He really wanted to get after it and race. I know a lot of fans kind of complained about it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I listened to Denny's podcast. And I don't remember if I bring it up anywhere.
I thought it was a big deal, to be honest, watching it on TV. Just because you could tell certain drivers wanted to go and they couldn't do anything about it because they were being held back by the guys in the front saving fuel. And it's like, if you wanted to go, you just couldn't because you were being held up. So that kind of, I mean, I know saving fuel is strategy, but at the same time, they were holding up the rest of the field on purpose, which, you know, the rule in NASCAR is when the green flag goes, you want to be going 100% at all times, as hard and as fast as you possibly can to win that race. And to me, that just wasn't happening. It went a little bit beyond strategy is kind of what I felt when I was watching that.
So I couldn't remember if okay, so I put it in my race grade, but because I didn't realize we were going to touch on it so quick. But Denny Hamlin on his podcast, he was one of those guys that wanted to go out and race. He wanted to make moves and stuff. And he was kind of talking about just in general, how the car has a lot more drag with it, where it's hard to make single car passes and stuff. Like he broke it down where, like, you remember back in the day, you'd have like a long train and then like a guy like Junior would pop out, make a move, and then pop back into the train. Well, you can't, because this car and the last car had too much drag, too much downforce and whatnot. He said that this car has so much drag that their qualifying laps, the single car laps, were some of the slowest that they've had in like years, right? And then he said during the race in the pack, while all those guys were saving fuel, they were on like 53-second laps, which are some of the slowest lap times for a race in like 40 years at Daytona.
Harvick brought that up during the broadcast, actually, where he's like, they're running 50, and he was almost taken aback by it.
Because usually,
like, wait a minute, they're running 50,
46,
wow, we used to run like 46, 47. Yeah.
So usually like 45 is qualifying times, 46, 47 is like lap times or so. So yeah, like that's almost a full, what?
3 seconds. I mean, that's a big
lot of time. That's a lot of time, you know?
Yeah.
Like speed wise, I think he said it was like something like I don't know, 20 miles per hour slower, 30 miles per hour. I forget. But anyway, you can listen to Denny's podcast. I was listening to that earlier today. I didn't get to finish it all. But apparently they're going to look into it. I listened to Dale Jr.'s podcast today too. He had some ideas where, like, you know, for the 500, you only have one stage break, but you give out 4 different stage winners. You know what I mean? Like one stage caution right at lap 100. I don't know. I don't know if it's really necessary. I think you should probably just, I don't know, get rid of some of that drag and downforce, you know, let them open it up. Right?
Yeah. Add some horsepower to those bad boys.
Do you guys have anything else to add to that though? Like, okay.
I mean, I don't think there's really much solution that you could do to it because that's something that you have to implement. The teams are going to have to go over.
Yeah.
The whole car, essentially, like they did this offseason with the short track rules package, the little tweaks that they made to that, it's going to have to go along those lines. There's nothing they could do mid-season that's going to change the way that the super speedway drag is on the car. Like they could probably do a little bit, but I mean, it's at this point with this new car, they're going to have to figure out it's racing different. You're going to have to figure out how to race that way. So is it a problem? I do think it was, for certain aspects, but at the same time, I mean, was the racing good? That's what I always think about. And I'm like, the racing was good. Like, yeah, you could complain about those little things here and there about, I wanted to race, I couldn't race, but I still thought the racing was good.
I thought
it was.
I thought the racing was really good. I think the super speedway improved this season so far versus last season, where I didn't think it was that great.
We could be nitpicking a little bit on that one thing that was like an obvious thing that happened. So I think it was an issue. I think it'll be looked at, but going forward, what are you going to do?
Was that a double doozy, Matt? A burp and a cough at the same time?
No, it was just a cough. I've still got this lingering cough. So last week I didn't have my voice, and it's just like it lingers, and it's just it's later into the day too that I get the cough comes back. Throughout the whole day, I'm fine. And then this time of night, every night for the past week, it's like, oh, here it comes again.
There was a gurgle at the end there where it sounded like a combo shot. I'm like, wow, what a double doozy right there.
I'm trying to stifle it because, listen, I listen to several different podcasts, and the last thing you want to hear when you're listening to a podcast is some fucking guy coughing in your ear. So, trying to stifle it. I also don't want to mess with the volume levels by muting and unmuting and muting and unmuting. So,
no, I totally get it. I just I thought it was funny. I was like, oh man,
Underground NASCAR podcast, baby.
Wayne's World Wednesday. One solution I did think was interesting. I don't even know if this was a solution, but it was just someone brought up on Reddit where get rid of SMT data. Where he was listening to like scanners and like one team would be like, hey, the guy in front of you is running 60%, and then they slow down. So like maybe seeing all of the different data that everyone else is doing, because everyone has all of the SMT data for every team. So they're constantly seeing what other people are doing and everything, how other people are saving fuel and whatnot. And then I think maybe they just kind of jump on the trend where it's like, oh, well, he's saving, so I should save. Maybe taking away that tool.
Didn't one of the drivers bring that up last season?
Dude, I think DBC has brought it up before. Somebody
brought that up.
Like, if you think about it, it's
maybe it was
like
at road courses
playbook and like being able to look at it. You know what I mean? Because you're seeing what everyone else is doing, like what their strategies are, whether it's saving fuel by lifting at this certain point or whatever it might be. You're literally getting to look at the other team's playbook. I get that. Get the
I think it got brought up when someone we were talking about Fox and they were blurring out the dashboards when they showed the in-car camera.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's like, why are they blurring out the dash on an in-car cam? And people are like, well, hey, that's information that teams could look at and see what's going on in their car and use that either against them or, towards their advantage. So I would assume if Fox is blurring out the dash of a car, I'm certain that having all that SMT data is a lot better than what's on the dash of that car.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, what's on the dash of that car that you're not seeing in SMT anyways,
Right.
I think it was a big Ford deal. Ford had something that they were hiding. I don't know what it was, but I remember those were the guys that had it all blurred out. Let's see what else. Cup cars are going to run a new right side tire compound at Atlanta. Not sure if that'll really affect anything. I forget who it was, but someone that I was listening to last week, maybe it was Junior, maybe it was someone on NASCAR radio, but they were saying, actually, I think it was Greg Stucker of Goodyear said, don't expect the same old Atlanta that we had last year because the track surface is starting to age and everything. We might see a little bit of a different racing product than we saw even just last year, where things might spread out just a little bit more. And maybe that's why they're doing that new right side compound. Maybe they want to see a little bit more tire fall off, adjust the racing a little bit. So I guess we'll see. I mean, that's really nothing to add there, except we'll see what happens this Sunday at Atlanta. And then whatchamacallit, Kyle Busch will be running at Atlanta in the number 7 Spire truck. He's going to run 4 races after that. So KB getting his 5 races in the truck series in with Spire Motorsports. You guys excited to see KB back in a truck?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes, I think I saw on Twitter, I don't know who it was, scrolling today, and someone really made a good point where I think it's time that they pull these drivers, the limit, and you let Kyle Busch go down there and you let him go ape shit on those guys. You let him mop them up each and every week down there. They need somebody to there's no respect down there anymore. And if you have a guy like Kyle Busch and some of these other Cup guys and even Xfinity guys going down to trucks, I think we need that presence in those series again for the respect factor. So, yes, I'm excited to see him go down there and see how they race around Kyle Busch, if it's the same as we've seen lately or not. So it's going to be an eye-opening experience if they try to pull the same old shit on that number 7 truck. I don't think they're going to get the same result.
I'm sorry. I was looking at the odds for the race on Sunday. Maybe, I would like to see, just like you just said, lift the restrictions, have those guys come down, and maybe those freaking truckers can learn something from these guys, because last year was a brutal. This past weekend at Daytona was brutal. There's no respect. They're just out there smashing into it.
What's Crafton doing? Like, how does Matt Crafton not have a bigger voice in the trucks for being down there? Like, there's some guys in that truck series that, like, you've been there, you're down there, like I don't know if they have been, because I'm not in tune with that as much as I am the Cup side.
Ben Rose is a 2-time Truck Series champion. Yeah. I don't care how young you are. You're a 2-time series champion. You got to step up and be the voice of that quote unquote locker room and tell these guys, enough is enough. There's just no respect, and there's no one dude. Back in the day, you had like Mike Skinner, you had Mikey Waltrip, you had Johnny Benson. You had these guys that were the best, some of the, I don't want to say the best, but some guys who spent a lot of their careers in the Cup Series, and then they all moved kind of down to the Truck Series, and there was that veteran presence, is what I was trying to say. In the trucks, a lot of veteran presence where there was respect earned and learned there, and you don't really have that now, and you're seeing the byproduct of that with all the wreck fests and lack of respect. It's just, that Truck Series is a mess.
I think part of the problem too is the business model of the Truck Series, where it's all pay to play, where like we want the veterans to go down and drive those trucks, even just on a part-time basis. Joey Logano said when he wanted to run a Truck Series race last year, he's like, I had to bring so much money to get into that car, where it's like, they don't want us, they want our money, and that's it, where it's like, I guess the truck teams aren't making as much on sponsorships as they used to. So now you have to supplement it all. And then now you kind of just get, whoever wants to pay to play. And there is no respect because it's a bunch of people with money to burn, kind of,
I don't want to get into the weeds too much because we're deep into the show here, but I don't think we have a fan question of the week this week. So I'll produce the question for the fans.
Okay.
Do you guys think that we see the death of the Truck Series at some point within the next, call it 10 years?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, that's tough.
I think if there's greasy money to be made, there's greasy people out there looking for the greasy money.
Yeah.
And I feel like a truck team and that kind of stuff, it's a real, people like Whitey said, if you have money to burn, it's a good way to just people in that, it's going to become the fun, like Whitey said, it's already turning into that. Where like, if you have a buttload of money, like look what's going on with boxing and these influencers. You don't think that that's going to come a time when they start getting in and dumping their money and go, oh, I want to run a truck race.
Yeah.
And some TikTok asshole is going to go out there and get into a truck because he has the millions of dollars and the followers to do it. So at one point in time, it's going to become a 3-ring circus. So yeah, I would take, if I was a betting man, I would bet that it would turn into something like that.
We're on our way to that 3-ring circus the way it is.
I know. I think you're right, especially with influencers with like crazy money to burn that just want to go out and do it. Like
Dan Bazillion or whatever the hell his name is.
I don't know if he's relevant anymore, but I was just gonna say like not a knock on Frankie Muniz, because like he's raced for a long time in other series and other forms of racing, but I mean
look who just won the Daytona 500.
Yeah.
Look who won the Daytona 500. Where did he come from?
iRacing.
Tell me there's not a Twitch iRacer streamer out there that's just like, he is the guy that all these kids growing up want to be. Slick Willie 2 Clocks coming from iRacing playing video games. Where is the world going? It's going to end up, we're going to be watching AI racing.
We need somebody. We need a cash cow to fund one of us at the Bumper On podcast to go drive a truck series race.
Yeah, so Whitey's got an iRacing. He's got the most experience. Get the guy in a truck.
Dude, I don't know how many hundreds of laps in Daytona in a truck. I'm ready to go right now. I'll put the pedal to the floor. I'll show those kids what's up. I'll show them how to avoid the big one too. You got to stay back. You got to feel it. Like Denny Hamlin. That's what I do in iRacing. I just wait. I feel it. I look. I go, no, things are getting a little chippy. Time to dump out. Back up a little bit, lose the draft just a little bit, and then you're fucking gold because they're going to wreck in turn 4 anyways.
They don't feel, it's getting chippy because they're the ones making it chippy. So they never sense that it's getting chippy.
No.
By the time they sense it, they're upside down.
They're like, oh, I'm gonna win the race right now if I get to first on the 15th lap. And let's see. I have one last piece of news. The RTA. They invited NASCAR to a group meeting. We touched on the RTA and the NASCAR meetings a little bit last week, and there wasn't much development. They invited NASCAR to a group meeting in Daytona to discuss the charter system negotiations, but NASCAR declined and said it's sticking with its process of meeting with the owners individually. So to break it down, because I was listening to Denny's podcast too right now, where he talked about a little bit, the teams have hired an antitrust lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, for negotiations with NASCAR. He's a big-time sports lawyer. He's the guy that got the NCAA their deal to get the students paid and stuff. Like, this guy is apparently, according to Denny Hamlin, the Michael Jordan of sports lawyers or whatever. Essentially, and listening to the Dale Jr. download, the team charter, all it does is guarantee a certain amount of money and you're in every race for a certain period of time. I forget how many years. It might be 5. It might be 10 years. I don't know exactly. But at the end of that term, what's going to happen is NASCAR is going to evaluate if the charter system works for them or not. And the teams are worried because if the NASCAR goes, oh, well, it's not working, it's going back to the way it was, then they could do that. Now all the millions and millions of dollars people have been spending on charters is absolutely worthless, So they're trying to ensure that their charter holds value forever, like a lifetime, where it's like, I could sell my charter at any time, make it like a franchise in sports. Because like right now, NASCAR teams aren't like a franchise where they're automatically included. Like the Panthers, they're gonna be in the NFL no matter what. Now, someone might sell the team might move somewhere, but that team is there. It's to stay. It has value. NASCAR teams, if they shut down, they could sell their charter and that's it. But if the charter doesn't have any value, then they don't have anything to sell either, And that's where they're kind of worried. So essentially what NASCAR teams are doing is they hired a lawyer to try to act as like a union president. No one is using the word union, but this is exactly what's going on. The race teams are organizing to get a better cause for everybody, and NASCAR is basically union busting them, where they're like, we're not going to hear it. So whether they show up in Daytona next year or not, we'll see. That is some rumblings. We'll see what happens with some teams crossing the line. Maybe some teams decide, some lower funded teams are like, I'll take the deal NASCAR is giving us. But right now the big teams are
like a strike, like where HMS just doesn't show up to Daytona next year.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because essentially NASCAR is saying like, you need us, we don't need you. So hey, the NASCAR, like Hendrick essentially could be like, oh yeah, what happens when Hendrick Motor Sports and the 4 cars I bring that hundreds of thousands of followers and fans don't come to watch them race because they know they're not going to be there? How is that going to look to your bottom line? So they're basically like,
they're at an impasse.
You know what we got here, boys? We got a good old standoff.
It's true though. It really is a
standoff on our hands,
and that's why the RTA. That's why the RTA invited NASCAR to a meeting. Bill France Jr. was down there. They refused. So now it's kind of a slap in the face to the teams, where the teams are like, listen, you need us to put on a show. NASCAR's like, we don't need you. We can find teams anywhere. Now, like what Eric said, though, what happens next year at Daytona if HMS, Gibbs, and Penske don't show up? But Spire does. All these smaller teams, they might still RCR.
You got to hold strong together.
So that's why NASCAR wants to meet individually with the teams.
Hey, Pocono's not owned by NASCAR. They can come race up here at Pocono anytime they want.
And Brendan Gaughan, that 62 team would fuck that up in a millisecond. They'd be like, yeah, we're coming. We'll be there.
Dude, good point, though, because was it last year or 2 years ago, they made an announcement, NASCAR did, that NASCAR drivers could drive other series and other forms and still use all of their licensing and stuff like that, right? Do you remember that story from a couple of years ago? Probably not. No. Anyways, it just made it easier for NASCAR drivers and teams to participate in other series. So we'll see what happens. But that's all the news I have for this week. We got a whole NASCAR weekend to talk about. We touched on a little bit so far, like the truck race where Nick Sanchez survived a record-breaking truck race for the most cautions at Daytona. Not the most truck race cautions at Daytona, the most cautions ever at Daytona. Right? That's correct, right?
Yes.
Disaster.
I have nothing I've already said what I've said about the Truck Series race.
Eric, you want to give us your records while we're here?
Yeah, it's just disaster. So it was a wreck. It's why they're wreckers. All they did was wreck. Yeah. There was maybe, I think, I'm not even joking, the longest green flag run might have been 15 laps.
That's insane.
I mean, it almost had to be if you think about the amount of
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that for a fact, but it was somewhere in there where like they only would get 15 green, and then there was someone happen again. So yes, my records was the Truck Series. It was just a poor display of racing because there was none essentially. So yeah, trucks trash.
All right, we'll get to the rest of the checkers and wreckers. But first, we had an Xfinity race after the Cup race. Austin Hill won his 3rd consecutive season opener at Daytona. What do you think about that, boys?
I saw the first 10 laps, and I
didn't see it. I was out. I was in bed. I didn't catch it, but I did see a lot of people question Austin Hill, how he got the win. They said he basically drove through a bunch of people at the end. Not sure if that happened or not, but they're like, yeah, take your win, but you kind of drove through a bunch of people to get it. So
I honestly didn't even see the highlights of the Xfinity Series.
I didn't see it either. We left the track probably like a half hour or so into the race, maybe an hour or so, and then drove to Orlando.
Hey man,
we did, and you want to know what? I forgot this part. So we drove to this hotel in Orlando because we couldn't extend our stay in Daytona. So like, oh, we're flying out of Orlando. Let's get a day's in. It was the worst fucking hotel room any of us have ever stepped in, and they double charged Jay's card.
I got that. I stayed at I'm not even gonna get into it. There was a hotel outside of the Philadelphia airport that Steph and I stayed at the night before our honeymoon, and let's put it this way. I wish I had my gun on me because I didn't sleep that night. Anyway.
I slept like 4 hours on top of the covers in my hoodie and stuff. Like I didn't take any of my clothes off. I didn't walk in the hotel without my shoes on. I brushed my teeth with a bottle of water, and I had a shit so bad in the morning, and I didn't because I didn't want to sit on the toilet. That's how bad this hotel was.
Bad. That's brutal.
It was bad. And then they double charged us. Jay's fighting with them all day long today because he has 2 charges on his credit card. Bastards. Oh, travel and stay, man. What a rough weekend for that.
You guys had a run.
I had FOMO like leading up to that. I'm like, man, I wish I was going. Also, like, the 1 year I'm not going, Luke's going, and like after all of the stories I'm hearing from you and Jay today, I'm like, man, like I kind of dodged a bullet.
Eric, when we were at the airport on Friday or Saturday, Jay says Eric would be losing his mind right now. He'd be so furious, and it's true.
Because you just want to get there. It's way down. Like you just want to get there. And on the way up, it's like, I just want to get home.
The thing is, the race and the experience throughout the weekend was worth it enough to deal with all of that.
Well, that's good. But that's all that matters then, right?
But next year we're doing Old Faithful. We're flying out of Allegiant. We're going to Orlando Stafford, not Orlando, the big airport. We're flying into the small one. We're doing it the way we should. It was too many changes this year, and it screwed us all up. But anyways, where was I? The Cup race. Sorry, folks. Wednesday show off the rails. William Byron led one time for 4 laps, the last 4 laps, to win himself a Daytona 500. The race lasted 3 hours, 10 minutes, and 52 seconds. We saw 5 cautions for 20 laps and 41 lead changes among 20 different drivers. Your top 10, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Christopher Bell, Corey LaJoie, Bubba Wallace, AJ Allmendinger, John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Jones, Noah Gragson, and Chase Briscoe. And I gave you the top 10 because who's in the top 10? Both cars. I believe it's the only organization that got both cars in the top 10.
LMC.
That's right. Eric, how you feeling after that performance?
I'll tell you what. It's good to see. We had speed all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
EJ was with Denny in the back of the pack most of the time, trying to get up and race. And kind of, they held out a little bit throughout the second stage, but when they wanted to go, they couldn't go. They almost like were back there too long, and that was pretty much the only time where I'm like, okay, like I want to see like that speed. Let me see the speed. Like I know you have it. Like let me see this speed. And they kind of, he got held up at the end by Suarez in the middle lane, which if anybody but Suarez was there, I don't even know if the wreck happens like shortly after that. There were some cars that were so unstable leading a line that should have never been leading a line, but there was nowhere for them to go because they were 3 wide at the end there. So, for them to get through at the end, finish in the top 10, both cars at Daytona to start the year. I know there's a lot of luck that is involved with that. So hopefully this luck continues throughout the season because that's huge. Starting getting a top 10 at Daytona, for as much as you don't think it is, it's pretty big. And, that gives you that gap. That gives you that little comfort zone because if something happens next week, now you're even in a bigger hole. So LMC kind of, they're starting off a hell of a lot better this year than last year.
Absolutely. Gives me hope for that team. I think it's going to be a good year for them. And I know what you mean too with Eric Jones and Denny in the back of the pack. Those guys want to race. Eric Jones wants to race. Yeah, and for sure. They just couldn't open it up, But yeah, I was really impressed by LMC and kind of all of the Toyotas in the field. But I think the Fords, man, I'll talk about the Fords. Let's see. Do you want to do our race grades?
Let's get into it.
All right, we'll start with Eric.
I'll roll through. I gave it an A-. It was everything you could have asked for. It's better than the previous 2 Daytona races that we've seen. The only thing was it was that fuel saving strategy that kind of it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, because there were certain guys that wanted to race, kind of couldn't. I'm like, that's kind of shady, kind of greasy, but besides that, great back and forth, ton of the lanes moving back and forth, which we didn't get a lot of that. And to Denny, what he said was when a single car did pull out, man, like even to block another lane, that single car just moving over slowed that lane down tremendously. So if you in a way, you couldn't, previous Daytonas where the guy would go back and forth from high to low, high to low, blocking. This run's coming here, this run's coming there. You almost couldn't do that because you risked slowing that other line down so much that you couldn't even hop back into the other line at all.
No.
Or you would just get shuffled completely out
right back
because there was a third lane coming and everyone's – so it kind of made it interesting as well. So it was a weird Daytona because you usually want speed. You want them going fast. They were going slow, but made it racy. It was I don't want to say one of the best Daytonas I've seen, but man, over the last 2 seasons, by far the best Daytona. And in the end, I'll say it, I was fine with it the way that it ended. It could have ended better. I think that's what would have given it like the A+ for me, like would have given it that, oh my God, this was what we needed.
Finish.
But it was still lacking that. It was lacking that finish that we talk about for the better of it. The Martin Truex by this much. We could have used one of those.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm very impressed with the way the new bodies of the Ford Toyota handled the car in general on this super speedway. The racing, whether they're going fast or not, I thought it was exciting, and it kept me tuned in on the edge of my seat the whole time. And at a super speedway, Super Bowl of our sport, I think we nailed it and knocked it out of the park.
Nice. How about you, Matt? What did you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything. I'm going to keep my review simple only because it is a super speedway track, and essentially there's only so much you could say about it. We had the 2 different lines, racing. We had side by side for most of the race. We had a couple different fuel strategies playing out where we had 3 different packs rolling at one time, and who's going to catch up to who has the faster pack. So all the typical stuff that you see at a super speedway race. So I got everything that I wanted out of the race itself. Yeah, I agree. I would have liked to have that one last lap to see what could have happened, but I'm kind of on the same boat as Eric, where I'm cool with it. It was, and I'll get into more into this part of the race in a little bit. But I'm cool with it. We're probably going to see a very similar outcome in one more lap anyway. So
yeah.
Whatever. It's you're almost delaying the inevitable, so I'm fine with it. I have no problem with the way it ended. And then there were some interesting storylines throughout the race, and just like I said, I loved it. I don't know if I gave my race grade, but it's an A+ for me.
All right. I agree with everything you guys said. I was there in person, so it's a little bit different, but I gave it an A. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to knock it down a few pegs because of the broadcast or what it looked like on TV, but I gave it an A. I thought it was a great race. I didn't think the fuel saving deal was that bad, especially in person, just listening to like MRN talk and everything. I didn't really notice it. I just got like multiple groups where it's like, oh, they're just off pit sequence, and eventually they'll all bunch back up, and that's kind of what happened anyways.
Well, when I saw AJ Allmendinger, a single car not
like
lose a lap,
up, yeah.
They're going fucking slow, man. Like that when I'm like, how is he leading right now? He was just, and then I'm like, he must have not, but they were saving fuel.
Yeah.
So they're not going fast. A single car didn't lose the pack, essentially. That's how you could tell that they were going slow.
That's at a Daytona. That's a problem. Yeah. That's a problem.
I did want to be fair too, Whitey. I know you were able to see the duels on Fox, so you got the clash 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you got a little sample of it. But I want to say, because we ripped Fox all the time, and I guarantee you we're going to rip Fox 50 times more this year. But Kevin Harvick did a fantastic job in that booth. I think he brought something. In my mind, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but in my mind, I think Harvick brings a new life to that booth. I really enjoy his broadcasting.
No, I was watching the highlights today, and like his commentary is fantastic. He has such a good like radio voice too. And he has a new podcast coming out too, Happy Hours. So if you want to check out that one, you want to add that to your NASCAR roster.
I wasn't completely sold on Kevin Harvick.
Really?
In the booth.
No, see, I like this.
I think, because I was paying attention to it, because I know this is the first time watching. I didn't watch the clash, so
right.
Yeah.
So this is my first time that he's in the booth, and I'm watching him, and I'll say he does bring a fresh element to the booth, his voice and his input, but he he's almost got to learn to not be so. I'm going to compare this to Jeff Gordon-ish when Gordon was in the booth. Gordon would get long-winded with his thing, and like you would lose the whole point of what you even were started talking about. So like now I think this is only because it was a super speedway race and everything was happening so fast and the lines, everything was going on. So tough race to call. You know, your first time in the booth, Daytona, and the racing we got, he was a little long-winded at explaining certain things, and it kind of stepped on Mike Joy and Clint trying to get to what is actually happening. You heard Clint say it a couple of times. I tried throwing that to you there, Kevin. I tried letting you know, like, going to, because Clint does know, like, he's paying attention. Like, he's good at throwing it and bringing up what he sees. And I think Harvick is too, he was too
explaining now, you know,
explaining it rather than just getting to what is going on and getting it over with. Other than that, I thought he was great, but it's his first time in the booth, and I think that'll work out. It was the speed at which stuff was happening at Daytona that I think kind of caught him off guard a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, you know, if you know, let's just say he goes on for a 15 or 20 second rant, 3/4 of a lap is gone or a half a lap is gone at a super speedway, you know, where you know, there's already different things that are happening on the track since you started the sentence. So yeah, I agree, Eric. There was some long-winded moments there.
And you know, Fox too, like, Harvick's still talking about something. Fox is already late to get the shot that he's talking about. And then they go to it. By the time he goes, something else is already happening that Clint's bringing up. And the camp, like, so you got to know how Fox production works a little bit, Kevin, before you start going on these, because they're not going to be synced up with what you're talking about. I think Clint kind of knew that. And that's why he was trying to kind of, you know, keep him going in a way.
Oh, Harvick's very familiar with how Fox operates, because I don't know if you guys remember, he was calling a race in Xfinity last year. The year
he's like,
before.
you have to show this. You have to show this right now.
Okay.
It's like a battle for the win or the lead.
Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you got to show this. Yeah,
it was like a battle for the lead or something like that. And they were like, cut to something else. Like, he's like, what are you doing? Like, you have to show this. This is it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught this, Matt, but I did, and I don't know if it was a dig. I took it as this was a burn and like a low-key burn that Kevin Harvick gave Chase Elliott. In the intros before the race, you know, the lineup in row 1, Eric Jones and blah, blah, blah. In row 2, they usually say a tidbit about him, right? So they're like, oh, in row whatever Chase was in, it's, you know, Joey Logano, you know, 2-time champion, 1-time Daytona 500 winner. And then Kevin Harvick was in charge of Chase Elliott, what he was saying. And he goes, oh, here's Chase Elliott starting in row 6, 6-time most popular driver.
Didn't even give him the championship.
Didn't give him a championship, not just 6-time most popular driver. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a burn. He just burned him, right?
Sport, God damn it.
Oh my God. Because like, how do you not say that he's a NASCAR champion? Like, you introduce him, like when you win a championship, you are forever a champion. And Harvick just gave it to him.
I mean, like, you got to think though, what year did he win that championship?
Right.
2020.
What year did Kevin Harvick win the most races in a season?
Yeah.
And what year did Kevin Harvick lose it by one spot at Martinsville, where he tried to spin out fucking Kyle Busch and didn't make it across the finish line? And the only reason why Chase advanced was because of that pit road deal. So I bet you there's a lot of animosity there in that one. Fucking A, man. Good catch.
Yeah, when I caught that, I'm like, no one else is going to catch that. But I'm like, he just called him a 6-time most popular driver. I'm like, what? That's the disrespect.
To advance.
What's that?
Chase won a race in that last round to advance to the championship to Phoenix.
No, well,
like 3 of the last 4 races that year. The year he won the championship.
Yeah, that was the year he tried taking him out at the Roval, wasn't it?
No. That was the next year. So that year, Chase Elliott would have had a pit road penalty at Martinsville, the cutoff race. But his guy
fell over
and he reset himself or whatever, and that was okay. And then he was able to do it. That same race, Kevin Harvick was one position out. He tried to wreck Kyle Busch coming to the line and ended up spinning himself out or whatever. But I think if Chase got that pit road penalty, he wouldn't have made the Final Four that year, because I think he won that Martinsville race too.
Yeah, he did. He won to get in. And
if he didn't win that race, Harvick would have gotten in, and he wouldn't even had to have wrecked someone for that one spot to get in either. You know, like one of those deals. So I believe I'm replaying that Martinsville race right in my head.
Put it this way: someone said it in that Netflix documentary. Drivers never forget.
No,
like they never forget.
No. What should we call it? But yeah, I gave it an A. I gave the whole thing an A. And yeah, I think we can move on to checkers and wreckers. But first, we'll take a little live break on Twitch if you're watching live on Twitch. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, then we'll be right back.
3 wide for the lead. 1 lap to go.
It's this week's checkers and wreckers.
I almost forgot how to rock out, boys, during the checkers and wreckers. What should we call it? Oh, hold on. Let me.
Dude, we gotta knock the rust off. So, like, the way I consume NASCAR races since we started this podcast a few years ago is like I'll make mental notes or actual notes in my phone while I'm watching the race. Like, ooh, that might be a good checkers, or ooh, that might be a good wreckers, or here's my grade so far. And I just make little notes as I'm watching the race.
Yeah.
So I have something to go off of. I didn't even think about our checkers and wreckers in race grade until you texted us today, like, hey, what do you guys have? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anything. So I had to go back and like think about it. And then I rewatched the highlights. So I'm good to go, but got to knock some of that rust off.
No, I get it, man. Dude, same thing happened to me. Like just little things like, oh, I forgot I have to do our podcast pick spreadsheet. And I was doing that last minute and everything. But we already did Eric's wreckers. He gave us the truck series as a whole earlier in the show. How about your checkers, though, Eric?
My checkers goes to the 2 stage wins. I thought the racing to end the stages was awesome. Normally, the first stage is like practice, and you see them riding around, shaking down their car a little bit. But, we got awesome racing at the end of the stages. And this is what stage racing is meant to do. Cause excitement all the way through the race to get a battle for these points. And man, they did not disappoint. And the move Chase Elliott pulled at the end to win stage 1, it was awesome. Like that is what super speedway racing like used to be. Like he was able to do that single car. Oh, I'm going to bump him, move him, go to the middle lane, get hooked up, get a bump by this guy, cut in front of him, go high, go back down low. It was awesome to see that. Like, that's just, he knew what he was doing.
And as great of a move as that was, Blaney's was even better.
Right. So then you get Blaney's move where he was like, you know what? I'm a champion. I need respect. I'm going to get respect. Teammates, they screwed me over. They wouldn't let me down. I couldn't go there. They left me out to dry. Well, you know what I'm doing? I'm letting them out to dry. I ain't being a team player. And he said it over his radio. I said, you know what? God damn it, Blaney, you're a champion. Go out there, start this season with a little bit of respect and say, you know what? I ain't a fluke. I'm going to be around here. And he went out there and he took that stage win and he took it. Like said, you know what? Not working with my team. I'm going out and winning this. So what you like to see? People want to complain about stages. This is a time when stage racing this is what it was meant for.
Absolutely. I agree. I thought the stage ends were fantastic. I was so excited for the end of the race because of those stage ends. Where I'm like, oh, this is going to be an all-time classic. It's just unfortunate how it kind of ended. I saw a guy in the airport when we landed in Philly. He goes, they should have let him finish that race. I go, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It ended. What are you going to do? It just sucks. But how about you, Matt? What's your checkers and wreckers?
Yeah, it's actually the way this shook out. It was actually a really good segue to my checkers, because my checkers has to do with the end of the race. Not necessarily that it ended a lap early, because like I stated earlier, I wish we saw that full length. But my checkers, it's the first checkers of the season, so I'm going to ruffle some feathers. I'm giving it to the watermelon man. I'm giving my checkers to Ross Chastain, because yes, he wrecked out and caused the race to end a lap early, and that, everybody wanted to see the end of it, of course. But what I am giving him the checkers for is the aggressive move with 1 to go in the Daytona 500. I'm totally cool with that move. And if you go back and really dissect the wreck, and I did before we jumped on here tonight.
Yeah, I did the same.
I think Ross would have made the move so the 7 gets the 2 squarely on the bottom row.
Yep.
And the 2 actually comes up the track just enough to close the gap for Chastain, but the hole was there for him to hit.
It was.
It was essentially the same move that Blaney pulled at the end of stage 2, only Blaney didn't have the bottom line to have to battle against. So Chastain made the right move. It was there. It's just the 7 got the 2 squirrely. And like to Eric's point before, some cars really couldn't perform when they were pushed. Some of them got real out of shape. That's what happened to the 2. The 2 came up the track just enough to close the door on Chastain, and they wiped out. And again, like I know a lot of people on social media and elsewhere were really dogging on Chastain making that move. He made the right move. He made the right move in my mind.
I think he did too. And even when you texted us earlier, and you're like, "Oh, Ross caused that wreck." In my mind, I don't think Ross caused that wreck at all. I don't think his move caused it. I think Corey LaJoie and Austin Cindric caused the wreck. I think Ross's move was legit. I think the hole was there. Like you did. I watched it a couple of times just to make sure, like, oh no, like if I'm seeing what I'm seeing. But the way I saw it, Cindric came down, and then LaJoie was kind of in the middle, right? And then they both kind of came like behind each other and got squirrely. Like LaJoie got into the back of him, and like they both kind of touched that yellow line too, where it looked like they were
back up a little bit,
and then it kicked back up, right? And that's when Ross was making that move. But if you watch, while the 7 and the 2 are on the apron there on that yellow line, it almost looks like, I forget who was behind the 7. I think it was Byron. I think it was. It was a white car. It looked like they were about to form a third lane, like a middle lane, right? And that's the spot Ross Chastain was going for. No, it couldn't have been Byron, though.
No,
right?
Byron won the race. It was probably EJ.
No, I think it was John Hunter and EJ were both in white cars.
Yeah.
And John Hunter finished in 7th. He was in front. They were both looking to start and hook up together to go up. Because at one point, I'm pretty sure that Denny was there too. They were all trying to get hooked up at the end there, the Toyotas.
Yes.
But the wreck happened before they were able to do it.
But when Ross started to make his move, it was a wide gap, and then it closed super quick. And even I sent you guys a clip that night where it was Ross Chastain and Austin Cindric talking to each other. And I think when Austin Cindric explained what happened on his end, Ross Chastain turned to whatever reporter was recording. He goes, "Oh, everything I just told you, it's wrong. I have new information now." You know, like I don't think he's taking the blame for it. And I don't think he should either. I think Ross Chastain made the winning move. He just got caught up in someone else's shitty pushes and the shitty move, you know?
And Ross doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because of his history.
Exactly. Exactly.
But he made the right move.
But yeah, if you're listening at home, watch the clip. Let us know what you think. And don't forget, if you have a question of the week, submit it either on Twitter or on Facebook, wherever you can reach us. YouTube comments. We want to hear your question of the weeks too. So how about your records? What are your records for the weekend?
Just the opposite. So like I said, like I love the aggression, last lap of the Daytona or coming up to the last lap of the Daytona 500. Love it. But my records goes to the bozos involved in the lap 5 wreck. Why are you being so aggressive on lap 5? Brad Keselowski and John Nemechek.
Yeah, for real.
So I dissected this one too, because like I knew I wanted to wreck them, but like I wanted to just go back and just dissect it just to make sure I kind of knew what I was talking about. And John Hunter Nemechek, he was being super indecisive leading up to the wreck, like that hole in the whole backstretch. Am I in? Am I out? I don't know where I want to be. I don't know where I want to be. And he finally makes his move. Brad Keselowski coming off the corner, punts him Pat McAfee style. And John Hunter's car, again, squirrely, couldn't handle it, lost control. And it's just a culmination of being way too aggressive 5 laps into a 200-lap event. And for 2 guys who have all the talent in the world, Brad Keselowski, who's regarded even by myself as one of the best super speedway racers we have, he damn near killed Blaney in the duels. I just don't understand why he's so aggressive, and he's always been aggressive. That's why I guess he's regarded as so good, because he's aggressive. But it backfired.
To play devil's advocate here, I think a lot of what happened was what Denny was stating and what Whitey brought up earlier about
guys wanted to go.
When guys want to go and other guys jump in a lane, I don't think these drivers understood how slowed down that car really gets. So when you jump in a lane and Brad is coming on that high side and you go in, he's flying up to that guy. Now, Brad is flying. He's like, oh, I'm just going to bump this guy and I'm going to push him with my train. We doesn't realize that one single car goes up. He slowed down drastically compared to this line. You're going fast. I just think they figured that out in this race.
That's
where it's
true
like
too.
the drag on the cars. I think the runs, I don't think a lot of the drivers expected it. You could see how fast that middle lane or the outside lane when there were two would fall when someone would make a move or block essentially in the front. It would take 2 laps for that other line to come back up. Like the drag was an issue.
He also caught him at the wrong spot in the back.
Was like the side and stuff.
You know what I mean? So it's like a culmination of
Brad is aggressive. He was for sure to blame there. But I'm saying I think a lot of the drivers, I mean, because you don't think, Brad, you should know better than that. But I think there was I think some of the back and forth, the difference in speed, the fall off of some of those lines, if you got squirrely in the front or someone blocked you and hopped up in your line. Yeah, you hopped up in line. Now you're leading. But 100 and 200 yards after that, you're not leading anymore. You just fucked that line over that you jumped ahead of.
I like that you just said yards right there. Another thing that Fox did, Whitey, that was pretty cool is they actually had yard markers every 100 yards that it was just a little graphic that they overlaid over the front stretch.
Yeah.
Or the front tri-oval there. And to show how quick a car goes 100 yards. Dude, that's a football field and it's a second. And it's like that. You always heard people say it, but until they actually have the markers there and you see it, it's like, Christ almighty.
Like they're just flying. That's
in a second. Yeah.
So this year we sat real close to the track because I wanted to get that sense of the speed from it. Usually we sit real high up so you can see everything, but I wanted to get real down low, feel the wind and everything. And it was awesome. But I have to tell you a funny story about that wreck. So earlier in the day, we're out at the merch haulers, we're hanging out. And there's the Team Penske and Wood Brothers hauler. They have all the guys' faces on it and shit. And Luke goes, "Who's that Kyle Rittenhouse looking motherfucker?" I go, "Oh, it's Harrison Burton. He'll probably cause the first."
Look like him.
He does.
Oh no!
And I go, "He'll probably cause the first wreck today, right?" I go, he flipped here 2 years ago at Daytona. It was fucking wild. And right where we were sitting, we were near the entrance of pit road, like that pit entrance area. And we hear the cars come and we see this smoke and we just see that 21 Wood Brothers cars sliding across. And Luke starts dying laughing. He goes, "Holy shit, Whitey, you called it. He's the first wreck." So,
dude, all right, I don't want to make light of this, and we could probably get in. Fuck it. I'm going to play a little game. Is this Kyle Rittenhouse or Harrison Burton?
That's Harrison Burton.
It's really close.
Yeah, right?
That is close.
It is. It's real close. When he said that, I was dying laughing. But whatchamacallit? Are we at my checkers and records now? I'm losing track.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. My checkers, real quick. I'm just gonna give it to NASCAR for calling the race early, giving a lot of people enough time to change plans like we did, and it definitely worked because I don't know how it looked like on the TV stands or on the TV screens, but the stands were fucking packed. Now they weren't Daytona. They weren't Daytona 500 packed where every seat was filled, but there was only like 2 or 3 seats around us, like in the whole entire section that weren't filled. And it looked like it all across the whole entire grandstand.
If you're a real NASCAR fan, like we are, obviously, there's a sliding scale when there's a rain postponement, right? Like I was at Dover last year when it got punted a day, and that for a rain delay or for a rain postponement to the next day, that Dover crowd was unbelievable. And I think you guys even said like it looked good on TV.
Yeah, it did.
Well, same with this. Like it looked fantastic for a rain postponement. For sure.
And they called Dover early too, so it gives people time to like adjust their travel. We all had Tuesday off regardless, so flying home on a Tuesday wasn't a big deal. So I felt bad for anyone that had to go home. I know friend of the show, Justin Pierce, and his buddies, they couldn't make it. They couldn't change their plans. Just unfortunate for the people that couldn't, but I was really glad they called it early so people could adjust. And my wreckers, I guess just not seeing a green, white checker finish. I didn't mind the finish as much as the internet did. I really didn't. I just wish, like we said earlier, there was that big Daytona 500 ending. You know, it didn't end under speculation, caution, and all sorts of stuff. But other than that, I thought it was great. I do have a solution, though, that I saw on Twitter. I thought it was very interesting. So you keep the rule when the white flag flies, that's the last lap or the last restart, and it ends under yellow if it goes to caution. But you change that caution line to the backstretch. So if you make it to that line on the white flag last lap to the backstretch line and a caution comes out, well, fuck it, you're done. Go through turn 3 and 4. Bam, the race is done. But if you don't make it to that backstretch, re-rack them again. Get it going all over again. That way you give not just that full, green, white checker. You give green, half of a white flag to get it in without a caution. If the caution happens, you restart it. And if you don't, and you get to that white line and then the caution happens in turn 3, well, it ends as you come out of turn 4. It's less anticlimactic, but it's also less of like a burden of proof and everything where it's like, fuck, What do you guys think about that solution?
Essentially, you're not racing to the start finish line ever in that scenario. You have to know where the caution lines are, where the timing zones are. It goes off of the timing. Like when that caution flies, it's not even
Scoring
the photo
loops
that
and
they
whatnot.
use. It's like there's timing that's involved in that. Where were you clocked at this time versus that time? And then they put all of that data together from what I read from their statement. And that's what determines it. It's the timing zones and those caution zones, not necessarily the start finish. So what if they just, did they move the start finish farther away to move it back to the original? Like it's too you're giving them more opportunity to do those stupid moves by making it farther away, right?
It's an imperfect science, though, because just a few years ago, Whitey, I think this might predate you a little bit in the NASCAR world, but they used to have the line, if you didn't pass a line on the backstretch of a track, then you had to redo the overtime again.
Okay.
Like it wasn't start finish line. There was a line on the backstretch of every track that you had to get to. If you hadn't passed that line,
that's basically what I'm saying. Like that should be it. Why not go back to that then?
Right, because you're clean for basically what NASCAR is saying by doing that is we know you drivers are going to stay clean for 3/4 of this lap, but the last quarter we know that you're about to pull some crazy shit.
Yeah.
So if you make it to that 3/4 line, that's official. If something happens after that, then it's official, and it doesn't go to the wreck; it goes back to the previous line.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I don't know. I'm sorry. I got a little confused on that. I don't know.
So the spot of the wreck, let's say they pass the 3/4 line on the backstretch, like Matt's saying.
Yeah.
The wreck happens after that. Caution gets thrown.
But that's on the white flag.
Do they score it back at that line, or do they score it?
Oh, I'm not talking about scoring. No, you score at the time of the caution.
Okay.
I would say that. Yeah. Score at the time of the caution where things went haywire. I was just saying instead of ending it with that full lap to go, that full white flag lap, because the wreck happened right at the line. It was caution.
Yeah.
They never even got to turn 1, Well, because they didn't get to turn 1, re-rack it, make sure they get to at least the backstretch before that rule goes into effect.
They used to do that. They used to do that. Yeah.
But that was just my what I saw online. It made sense. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Let's go back to that then. I didn't know it was an old way of doing it. But let's see. I got some race notes. Just in general, we talked about it a lot, but the Toyotas and the Fords, they have a new body. They look great in the duel. Same on Monday. I think the Fords were way better on Monday than they were in the duels. And as a whole, I was curious. Fords led 103 laps, Chevy led 62, and Toyota led 35. Now, Denny and Christopher Bell really did the bulk of that for Toyota. No other real Toyota drivers led except for Bubba Wallace, but he only had 5 laps. Christopher Bell had 22, and Denny had 15 or 20, something like that. I forget exactly. But I thought that was interesting. We'll see how those bodies perform throughout the rest of the season. Let's see, some guys that did well but might not have finished well or whatnot. Seabell led 22 laps and didn't wreck the field, so that's good for him on a super speedway. He didn't wreck anybody. Chase led twice for 13 laps. He was up on the chip. I think he's ready to make up for last year. I think he's full focused again. Let's see. Kyle Busch had a fucking car. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I thought he was one of the best cars all day watching him live.
Yeah, he drove from the back 3 times. He had a bad, fast car.
It was just unfortunate. He had that lug nut issue and then got caught up and whatnot. And then
I thought it was Kyle's. I thought it was going to be Kyle's day.
Even with the lug nut, that happened so early, it didn't even matter. He was right back up front after that happened anyway.
Yeah. Well, I had the beers kicked in around that, and I barely remembered. I came back from the bathroom, and Jay's like, "Rowdy's not doing well. Lost a lug nut." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And then it just didn't really process with me. Whatchamacallit, Logano definitely had a winning car. He led almost a quarter of the race with 45 laps. He wrecked out on that lap 192, big one though. So fuck you, Logano. And then I thought Reddick had a really good, fast car. He was making up some spots in stage 2. He went from like 21st to 5th. I thought he could have won if he was in the top 5 near the end and we got one of those classic Daytona finishes. I think he could have made a move.
I think if Flores isn't in that middle line, John Hunter, EJ come up that middle line with Bowman, and I think that was a line that could have given us that ending.
Oh yeah, and then
Justin Haley, incredible day. I don't know if you have him down, Whitey.
I didn't notice it because I keep forgetting to look out for the Rick Ware car now that he's in it.
Dude, Justin Haley had a car. He ended up getting into he had some mechanical issues happen to him, I think, or something with the motor wasn't running right, which sucked because, dude, he was up there running with those boys and he was giving it to him. I'm like, let's go. And like,
I know he ran really good in the duels. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I had him in I put him in my fantasy lineup and everything. And I'm like, and he was killing it for me. I'm like, dude, let's go. And then, he ended up, having those issues, which I felt terrible for him. Just like Michael McDowell, he had a car, which is like nothing you could do at that point in time. But man, I'll tell you what, Rick Ware and that, that 51 car with Justin, I think they might surprise some people.
Yeah, dude, Justin Haley is like, that dude can get around a super speedway. He can manipulate the draft. He is so good, and he doesn't get nearly enough credit.
Right.
No, I think he's going to do real well in Rick Ware. I think we're going to be impressed by Rick Ware this season, especially at the super speedways. But like you said, I felt bad for Michael McDowell too. He had a car. I forgot to put that in the news.
Never feels bad for Michael McDowell.
I forgot to put that in the news. They're now a tier 1 Ford partner where they're getting a lot more information than they were, and they have a better alliance with Penske for resources and stuff. So I expect big things from them. And I was super impressed by his teammate Todd Gilliland. He led once for 16 laps. He was up front. I was like, holy shit, man. That 38's not doing too bad. Or is he in the 36? I don't remember. 38. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, that's all I have for my race notes. I don't know if you guys have anything else. Again, drank a lot of beers during it, so things were a little foggy, and the replays only show so much,
I just think, to me, one of the biggest things was if you wanted to race and you try to jump out and get that third line going, like EJ tried it a couple times. I know LaJoie was one going up there, starting it a lot of times up top. It was almost harder to do because now I noticed this, and they said it on the broadcast too. The guys in the bottom lane, their cars, even Kyle Busch all day was tight. So when they're coming up, their car wants to go up the racetrack.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm like, man, are these cars are they aggressively side drafting this much? Or is this cars ill handling? Like, are they sliding up the track? It was a little bit of both. I think their cars were tight. They said, fuck it. If I'm tight, I might as well side draft your ass. And they pushed, like the 2 lanes were running so close to the wall, and the bottom right next to the yellow line, where normally you'd see that bottom lane is hugging that yellow line. There was a lane and a half a lot of the times to the yellow line. Yep. They were riding the wall and pushing each other really, really close. 1, the side draft, and 2, the cars were tight on the bottom. and you had the cars in the middle leading loose. So there was some cars, the handling issues, which you have to have that at super speedways instead of just that raw downforce speed. So I did kind of get enjoyment out of seeing that. Like, the drivers really had to wheel these cars, and they weren't just pin it and go around the racetrack.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the at the duels or if it was the MRN broadcast, but they did mention how it wasn't the bottom and top lane or the bottom and middle lane. It was the middle and top lane that was going.
Yeah.
And now that you bring that up, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was really interesting.
On the podcast too.
Yeah.
They highlighted it. Look at how much room is left there.
Yeah, that is interesting. I forgot about that, but now that you jogged my memory there, Eric.
But I did notice too, like, I feel like this year something sparked it. Like, you heard Blaney say it, you heard Denny say it. Like, I think a lot of drivers were going against team orders because I noticed certain packs of cars would legitimately block tremendously, no matter who it was.
Yeah,
they would block them, and 3 cars would bump out a line just to fuck over another line. Like, I noticed that.
Dillon,
like, wow,
man.
there's a lot of games being played right now, and I don't think anyone is working with one another. It seemed even pitting. Some of these guys, they couldn't get down. The teams weren't letting them get down. There were so many strategy spotter games being played because, like, at one point in time, there's drivers yelling, like Blaney. He's going, "What the fuck do you want me to do? What the fuck? Would you think I'm not trying to get down on the bottom?" He's going, "You think I'm not? What do you want me to fucking do? I can't get down there." So you had games being played all over the place, and some selfishness, I think, came out of these drivers to be like, I know it's a team order, but this is Daytona 500, and saw some shitty blocking amongst the pack of 3. So
I tell you who was a good teammate. Did you see that block Austin Dillon threw to help KB out? He was like, I don't know, 30 laps down or whatever. So
yeah, Kevin, he probably goes, yeah, that might not be the smartest thing to do. He goes, but that's what you have to do. He goes.
Oh yeah.
We bitched at Logano for doing that last year. Remember, he went up in the front of the pack and almost took out everybody.
Because he split the middle though. That was rough, and I think there was a third lane in the middle too that he had to. Yeah, that was real dangerous. Nah, Austin Dillon's wasn't as egregious as Joey Logano's last year, and that's not just us hating on Joey Logano. That one was bad.
It was egregious.
It was. Whatchamacallit? That's all I have though, except for here on the Bump and Run podcast. Everyone loves to talk about the winner, William Byron, on a Monday, although we barely talked about William Byron today. Maybe when it's a different type of racing. But here on the Bump and Run podcast, we like to talk about the guy who came in last, and that was one Carson Hocevar. He was taken out in that lap 5 wreck when Brad Keselowski gave a bad push to John Hunter Nemechek and knocked Harrison Burton into Hocevar into each other. Those two and then Kaz Gralla were the only casualties at that point. They all didn't make the end of the race, but Carson Hocevar scored in the last place, and you know what that means. We're heading to Atlanta.
Marty, you gotta come back with me. Where?
The next NASCAR Cup race. It's the weekend preview.
Oh, my Atlanta. We're heading to Atlanta. We have a truck race on Saturday, 2 p.m. on FS1 for the Freight 8208. Xfinity on track Saturday, 5 p.m. following on FS1 for the Raptor King of Tough 250. And then, of course, Cup on track, 3 p.m. on Fox for the Am Better Health 400. No practice except for a weird pit entry practice they're going to have after qualifying. I don't think they're going to air that on TV. Qualifying will be at 11:30 Saturday morning. Fellas, to recap our picks from last week, I chose Ryan Blaney to win the 500. He got me 17 points. Eric, you chose Denny Hamlin to get the 500 win, and he got you 22 points. Matt, you chose Bubba Wallace, got you 39 points. So Matt coming in first, which means you pick last this week. Eric picks second, and I pick first. And fellas, I think for Atlanta, I'm going to go with someone that ran really good in the 500. They were in a backup car because they wrecked during the duels. They got a win early on last season to lock themselves into the playoffs, and I think they might repeat. It's someone we just literally stopped talking about. One, Kyle Busch. I think he gets it done in Atlanta.
I'm going to go with somebody that I thought he was going to do well in the 500. He did. Had him in my fantasy lineup. Confidence is there. I think that is key for this season as a whole. I'm going with the 9, Chase Elliott.
Oh, nice. All right.
I had 3 names written down. Chase was one of them. The other 2, it came down to our defending champion and our defending Daytona 500 champion. I believe in momentum, but I also believe in hangovers. Yeah. Lord knows I believe in hangovers. I'm still going with William Byron.
Oh, man, I was going to do the same thing. I'm like, when was the last time we had the first 2 races, 500 and back-to-back winners? I don't know. Maybe Jimmy Johnson in 05 or 6, maybe.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I believe in momentum, and I think William Byron had a special year last year, and I just think he's going to get his shit together, and I think he's going to win.
I was this close to doing the same thing, dude. This close.
He runs really well at this new style Atlanta too. So yeah, I mean, running with the hot hand. That's my goal this year, is to run with the hot hand in fantasy and everything else.
I'll be honest with you. Mine was a panic pick. I was going to pick Chase Elliott because he's a Georgia guy. And, but then I'm like, that's too low. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who does well at this new Atlanta, because I don't remember the last 2 races at Atlanta at all. I just remember Corey LaJoie. I just remember Corey LaJoie finishing in the top 5, and I was this close to picking Corey LaJoie or Justin Haley as a dark horse. I couldn't do it. And so then
if you ever pick Corey LaJoie on this podcast, I'll never come on again.
Nah, I wouldn't do that. That's why I switched it to KB last minute. But I'm like, I don't even know who's good at Atlanta. So don't follow my pick, but I like your 2 picks. Take Chase Elliott. Take Slick Willie 2 clocks. We'll see what happens. We will find out. Playoff picture. I know the season just started, but you got to think towards those playoffs. William Byron got himself locked into the NASCAR playoffs. Who will be the next? Will William Byron get the 2nd win in a row? Will KB lock himself into the playoffs? Or will Chase Elliott lock himself into the playoffs for redemption for last year? We will find out this Sunday, 3 p.m. on Fox for the And Better Health 400, and we'll break it on down for you right here on the Bump and Run podcast next Monday night. For Matt the Statman Reilly, for Eric Daytona Ron, I'm Michael D. White, saying have a good night and never fly Frontier Airlines if you can.
The Bump and Run! There it is!